Well,
busy.
no, you can't study.
Been busy.
You don't study nothing. Nice horse.
I'd like to call the order of the East Ascension Drainage Meeting, October 9th to order, 2017. Ms. Secretary, Mr. Turner,
That's it.
everyone else is present. Mr. Kluwer, would you please lead us in the invocation,
Yes,
followed
sir.
by the pledge?
Everyone, please stand. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you for sparing our area in this last hurricane. We ask that you keep us safe through the rest of this hurricane season. Lord, it's with heavy hearts we ask for prayers for all the families and the people that were lost in the mass shooting in Las Vegas. We ask that everyone take a deep breath, take a good look around, and reaffirm your faith in mankind. Let's ask that we all try to live together. Lord, it's with special blessing we ask that you look upon the DeLone family in Santa Monica for the loss of Mr. Joe DeLone, a community member and a very well father and family man. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign in with the secretary. There will, we're going to move on to number 4, the acceptance of the minutes for September.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Benny. On the chairman's report, I want to thank everyone that was involved with the Manchac boat tour. I think what we're going to end up getting out of this will be a maintenance agreement between East Baton Rouge Parish and Ascension. Just to let everyone know, when you go for a boat ride, it's supposed to be a pleasure ride. This ride that we took, it was not a pleasure ride. And I think everyone now knows, with the 3 parishes that are discharging into the Manchac, we definitely have to do something. It is in terrible shape. So if anything comes out of this, I want to thank PLD, all of our crews, East Baton Rouge Parish, a couple of councilmen, and the state rep. Thank our state rep, and and Senator Lambert. He had his boat out there with us. So thanks for everyone that made this a positive trip, and hopefully good things. I know good things will come out of this. Anyone want to share anything on that? We good? We'll move on to number 6, the drainage report. Mr. Rue.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Like always, the monthly reports was sent to y'all and for your review. If you have any questions specifically on some of the capital projects, we have consultants here that can answer your questions. Or you can further review and call me at a later date. We'll be glad to sit down with you to answer any of your questions. The same goes for operations schedule and what's going on in your specific districts. We'd be glad to sit down with you and go through it in detail at a later date if you wish.
Okay, appreciate that. We'll start off, Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, Bill, I don't have the paper in front of me, but I wanted to ask a couple of questions about we're in the process of budget approval, and I see maybe I'm not remembering the numbers correctly, but there's about $12 million in one of your accounts in the operations account, and about $13 million in the capital account. I think that's pretty close. I think it's 12.6 in the capital account, and the other one is somewhere 12 something on the maintenance account. All right. I see there's a list of projects for the spending in the capital account. I don't have my paper in front of me. That might be 35. Is that 35?
I tell you what, if you don't mind, Councilman, we forgot, actually forgot to send out one of the items, the documents for one of the items on the agenda that has to do with the 5-year program for capital projects. We have the document. We're going to hand it out under that agenda item, and we can talk in detail about it at that point. It has the budget items on it for the next 5 years for each capital project. And also, actually, I'm going to ask for either for you review it and bring it back at the next meeting to approve the projects, or if you like to, you can do it tonight. But we're going to go through the whole schedule.
Is that item number 9?
I think it is.
Well, specifically, I saw there was a list for the capital, but there's no, we have about a like amount of money in the 03. Is it 03, the other one? 03. Can't remember the numbers.
03 is a road fund. 03 is a road fund that we utilize for roadside.
No,
drainage.
major drainage. The other major drainage fund is not the
05 is
capital.
operations, and Fund 35 is capital projects.
Okay, but on the major drainage under the maintenance, if you will, I don't see any list of projects, and there's about 11 or 12 million dollars worth of spending there. So exactly, can you get us an idea of that's what projects that's going to cover, or what are we, I just in reference to that, and again, reference to Chairman Lambert, we were talking about the tours that we took down Panama Conway and Bayou Manchac. I think we're sorely in need of maintenance of those systems. So I'm wondering whether that's a part of that 12 million or so that we have in that maintenance.
When you're
monies.
talking, yes, sir. When you're talking about operations funding, which is Fund 05 for drainage, EAD, that pretty well takes care of all your manpower, your equipment, and specific things like your pump stations and stuff like that. It does not, and in that fund there is no money specifically for maintenance of the major state channels, which is Manchac and Amite River. And that includes the weir at the Virgin Canal and the Virgin Canal. It does not include any money in operations for maintenance of those structures. Typically, we do not get involved with maintenance of the structures, with the exception of, from time to time, we will go and remove a tree from Bayou Manchac that's fallen and it's causing a buildup, somewhere in that system. We'll remove it with our people, but that's part of major, regular operations function. But we do not have any money specifically for those channels in operation.
So there's no money in the budget for clearing, or if there are obstructions in Panama Conway, Manchac. Is that am I correct there?
Actually, again, you have to realize that we budget manpower and equipment for the whole year. So if there is an obstruction in Conway, in Panama, in New River, any of those channels, including Manchac, that's part of normal daily activity, which is accounted for with their man-hour payroll, with equipment costs and everything else. In other words, we pay an employee X amount of dollars, per day or per hour. If he's cleaning a tree out of New River or he's grading a roadside ditch, he gets X amount. That's his salary. And the budget for salaries is for the whole year based on, the expected man hours he's going to work. So again, it's built into the whole budget, but it's not a specific dedication of funds, say like for manpower equipment to actually go get a tree out of a bayou. We treat that as any kind of ditch cleaning or ditch clearing operation. Small ditch, large ditch, it really don't make any difference. It's built into the yearly budget.
So I found my notes here finally, and it's there's $13 million in the 05 budget for major drainage.
Sir?
There's $13 million that I see it's available in or budgeted in the 05 budget, major drainage for 2018. Now, we had talked, Parish President, I talked about some kind of a spraying program in Panama Conway, and we weren't talking about necessarily doing that with our own employees, but with contract or having someone contract to go and survey those canals on a regular basis and see if there are obstructions that need to be cleaned out.
We
So I
have-
guess, am I hearing that none of that's in this 13 million?
Yes, sir, it is. And the way we handle that in our operations budget is through the classification, mostly professional services. We allocate a certain amount of money in professional services and engineering and other categories within that budget that is spent on things like that if we have to contract it out. The same goes with like bridge building, bridge repair. We don't have a set number, say like we have 3 bridges to repair this coming. We don't really know how many bridges we need to repair. As it comes up, we mobilize to do it, and we contract out to do it. But that's built into, for the most part, professional services.
So, I
And we have
mean,
a
we're
certain
not
amount of
talking
money.
about, I'm not talking about bridges here, I'm talking about
It's
going in the canals and doing a regular, some kind of regular maintenance on assuring, maybe spraying and keeping the trees cleared out that have fallen. So are we gonna have a regular program for that in 2018? For
We do not.
particularly those,
We have not put into the budget a regular program to do that. We have money set aside in professional services that we can mobilize a contractor to go do it if we see there is a need, or if it's the wish of the Range Board to do so. We have money built into those categories to go do it, because they're not specific categories with specific tasks are tied to them. It's an open type of fund that we use throughout the year to mobilize when needed. Because we have money in professional services to do it.
so well, I'd like to
But
make a motion then.
we don't have anything
Is-
set right
Is
now.
that proper, Mr. Chairman? I'd like to make a motion that we do regular maintenance and cleaning of Manchac, Conway, and Panama at a minimum, and we do this on a regular basis and clean any blockages that are there.
What about New River and Black Bayou, brother?
There you go.
I mean, what we
I
doing?
said at a
North and south
minimum,
or what?
Fence wall.
I said at a minimum because I knew I was leaving somebody out.
Yeah, let's do this, Mr. With
It's already been done.
with the pending that we're gonna have with other parishes here, I know with Conway, we could deal with our own stuff here, but we are gonna have some help with, neighboring parishes that's gonna help us with this. So, unless y'all wanna put it on the multi-year, where you can go ahead and plan it out.
Well, that's not under the capital. This is in his maintenance budget. This is in the 05 budget.
Councilman, there's a difference between when you say, let's go in and spray the leaves, or, in fact, what we do, part of our normal operations is, in fact, we did, the last big one was New River. We go down the center of New River with our shredder, flotation shredder, and shred the edges or the sides of the banks of the channels. That's part of our operations. We have that equipment, we have personnel, and that's what they do. We did the lower end of, most of New River a couple of years ago, and we started at the upper end around LA 30 and toward the plants. Last year, we did a good portion of that, shredding the edges of the channels with our shredder. We do that as part of normal operations that's built into our salaries and for personnel salaries and benefits and equipment costs. That's in there
Well, I
already.
know this. I mean, like, when we went down Conway, President Matassa was with us. That hadn't been cleaned in years.
Conway was completely cleared 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, there you go.
Kim Spray went down and did a snagging and clearing. However, you got to understand that, we can do maintenance, like we do our shredding of the banks and go in there and remove specific obstructions as they occur. To do a general, once a year, complete go down and remove everything like a snagging and clearing, that is a permit process. We had to get a permit when we did Panama and Conway before.
Well, it's
And-
my appreciation that there are some of the trees that you can remove without a permit. Is that not correct?
Obstructions you can,
Yeah,
specific
and
obstructions.
that's what I'm asking for.
And usually we do that. I mean, we do it as we get notification of it, and once a year or sometimes twice a year, we go down this channel with our own people and take, the last time we took actually a video.
But we haven't done that in Conway in 5 years.
No, we went down it just a few months ago.
Well, I mean, the parish president, we got the pictures, the trees have been there for years.
Yeah.
They're falling in there.
Again, the only way you can settle that is to do a snagging, either a snagging or clearing, or you do a shredding of the system. And that's what we've been doing. Is every year we take a different channel and we do a shredding of the banks. And that takes care of all the vegetation of it. Most of the vegetation along the banks are heavy vegetation, trees, small saplings, and stuff like that. So that, only way you can remove that is physically remove it by digging it up, which takes a permit because you can't obstruct the root ball, or do a shredding. And we've been doing a shredding of the channels,
But what about these trees that are falling in there? And then there's all this vegetation that's grown up around these fallen trees, and in some cases it blocks 3/4 of the width of the bayou.
Well, we need to know the locations of that, and if we knew the locations of it, we'll go and remove it. But
Well,
we
I'd
go
say
through
we
there
ran
about-
across at least 20 or 30 places just in Conway when we went there.
Yeah, we'll send somebody to review it. We go at least once or twice a year and go down the channel to see if any obstructions. And we usually do it after a major event, like we did, last time we did it was after the August flood last year.
So do I need a motion or not?
No, that's just a
Okay.
request. We'll make a review of it. When we do take a survey of it, we usually film everything. We film the whole channel, and then we locate, through the film, we locate the GPS locations of
Okay.
it. And then work orders go in, and we have to find a suitable method of getting to that location to remove it and stuff like this. But usually we take a film of it and we get GPS locations.
Okay,
But we'll
Okay.
check on it this week.
okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Sadler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rue, just in the last few weeks, several articles have been published in actually national media stating that nationwide, local municipalities and county, and in our case, parish governments, are paying a rather severe price for the irresponsible building or permissions granted by these local authorities for irresponsible building in floodplains. And the numbers that I've seen are in the hundreds of millions of dollars, not discounting even the FEMA reimbursements involved in that. So my question tonight is very simple, and I hope to get a very simple and clear response. How far are we away from completion of the final, I guess it's HNTB/CSRS floodplain management studies, and even more importantly, these engineering firms' recommendations for alterations of our drainage impact study land development codes? I had taken the latter up in strategic planning, but was told by administration to cease and desist. There's no need to do so, because in looking at the task order given to those engineering firms, albeit it was sent to me and highlighted in yellow, and I really didn't see it the way the administration did, that the latter idea of alterations of our drainage impact studies would be covered underneath this floodplain management study that we're paying for. When are we going to have it? And we could go on record tonight to say that, yes, it's going to include suggestions of how we would alter. Floodplain management study is important, but what's really important is changing of our floodplain management ordinances and drainage impact study LDCs.
The key word is final, and on that, you're looking at 9 months to a year. And yes, it will.
Whoa. Excuse me, sir. I thought we heard that it would be like 3 months from now.
Sir, you said final. The final completion of the task will be 9 months to a year. Final completion of the task, and yes to your second.
So in 3 months, we'll have maybe the studies completed, and by 9 months, we'll have recommendations for law changes, or both is at 9 months?
You have everything complete in 9 months to a year. Now, you're asking a specific question, I'll give you a specific answer.
I understand, but at that point, Mr. Rue, it'll be almost 2 years since you originally said that you were going to bring this council a no-fill ordinance after you identify floodplain management, geographical areas. I tell you what, it better darn well happen in sometime in the next 9 months. We just dodged a major bullet with this hurricane last weekend. I'm referring to Hurricane Nate. Other folks in Puerto Rico, in Texas, in Florida, and elsewhere weren't as fortunate with Harvey and Maria and other storms. We must get on top of this ASAP. That's all I'm saying. And thank everyone for listening.
Mr. Aaron.
I have no questions during this meeting, thank you.
Mr. Rand.
Yeah, Bill, I got a couple of things I want to touch on Teepo Lane on the Bateman ditch. What we looking like on that?
I think we started, or we're getting ready to start. I mean, everything's been finalized for us. Dottie on it. We have agreements signed, agreements verified with the owners. We have a few little, hiccups on the owners changing his mind, but we got all of that completed and verified, and we're ready to start.
Yeah, I just
Hold on, Ron. They met with Mr. Yeah, it's ready to be mobilized. I think we're going through a final dotting on it for utility locations and
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, I know they got several large utilities that pass through that area.
No, the design is done, the approval with the owners, everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
And we should be getting started either tomorrow or next day.
I mean, I think as you and your staff know better than me, that's just one of the only survival techniques for this, for the people on Teepo Lane, as the development up at the front on Stringer Bridge has taken place, and we haven't found any legal means to try to figure that out yet. So it'll also help Buxton subdivision.
And we're gonna go up to
You can go to
Stringer Bridge Road right now.
935.
Right, 935. Then we're gonna try to work on the continuation of that ditch through the other side of the property.
And-
we have no servitude, a lot of that, and we still have working on.
And if you need,
acquiring it.
I know the families on that side, if we got to talk to them, so you know them too. And so I appreciate that. I got a call, there's been a lot of debris removed from the bridges, things, and I got a call on New River Bridge at New River Baptist Church that I think there was a bunch of debris removed from the bridge, and it's kind of on the side of the bank there. If you can get somebody to check on that, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And I would like just informally or just a Cliff Notes update on the Law Ridge levy, if this is the proper time for it. I know we got GSA in the house here, and we definitely been anticipating some good news on the Law Ridge levy permitting process.
GSA is here to comment on that.
Can we get a comment from the PLD, an engineering firm?
So we turned in our mitigation agreements, the purchase agreements for all the mitigation banks to the Corps on September 21st and advised them to start their final review period. So we spoke with a Corps representative a week and a half ago, and they told us we were about 6 weeks out from our permit. So we should receive our permit next month.
We want a Christmas present,
Yes.
okay?
We want a Thanksgiving present.
And just to let the rest of this board know, I think the mitigation move that we made in the last meeting was successful.
Yes.
And we appreciate everybody's efforts. I appreciate all the support from everybody. And so let's don't leave anything. Let's not beat them up, but we're right there at the threshold, and we don't have any agencies right now that we're pending review. We basically got the Corps of Engineers.
Yes, they're starting their final review period, or they should be in their final review period.
All right. And let us know if we got to revert back to that that tactic that they implemented a couple of years ago about getting our paper to the top of the pile, okay? That proposition, I forget what it was. Didn't care for it, but it's there. Mr. Rube, you know, you and I have been knowing each other a long time, so while I challenge my good council chair there, Mr. Dawson, I also align with Mr. Dawson and revert back, so I'll regurgitate Mr. Kent Shakespeare's, you know, clean-out crews, and I think that's what he's looking for. And I don't think this board wants to go to the point where we have to make a motion to get a clean-out crew. So, but I will clear up for everyone. Several years back when we did a cleanup in that area, that Panama Conway, I don't remember if it was based on permit or based on grant or what it was, but we had to GPS every tree that we were going to remove one time, one of the cleanups, and it was just a really cumbersome procedure to go help just clean a canal out. And so, Bill, if you can expand on that for me.
Actually, it happened twice after one of the hurricanes. I can't remember which one. We had a grant through NRCS.
Right.
And at that point in time, we had to document that it was caused by the storm, and anything that wasn't there because of the storm, the grant wouldn't pay for. And that GPS locating of every documented and location of every item that fit the grant had to be noted, and that's the only thing that could be taken out per the grant. We end up taking everything out on our own, but that's the way that was. On a snagging and clearing operation for the core permit, you have to document the need for it. And part of that is going down and looking at and identifying the obstructions, and that all has to be part of your permit process to get a permit to go in there and remove that. And as part of that process, is certain criteria for us, you couldn't really take out anything that was a potential problem. In other words, you have a tree that's leaning at a certain angle. If it went to a more excessive angle, you could probably take it out. If it didn't, you couldn't take it out. So you can't actually go in there and just take out anything and everything. The core permit don't allow that. So it's a pretty extensive process to get the core permit. Now, once it's a whole different, like Mr. Dawson is right. Once a tree falls and it is an obstruction, we're allowed to go remove the obstruction.
Right.
We are also allowed to go through and do some shredding. So we're not, fooling with the root balls. We're not fooling with the soil. We're just shredding and spreading the shredded material throughout the bank.
And we did that in that area at that time.
We did it in different areas. Again, our last major project for that was New River. And again, we take one channel per year, and we just we're not even finished with New River yet because we're taking it from the LA 30, the chemical plant area, all the way through to Gonzales, or at least to 73. We're in the process of that. We did the lower, from Gonzales down to Santa Mo, I think the Village Bridge, up to the church.
Yeah.
We did that whole area about a year and a half ago, completed that part. And we're trying to do that. That's the whole purpose of getting the shredding machine, the flotated shredding machine, to be able to go down the center of the channel and do that work. Again, we only have one machine like that, and we can only do so much at a time. Again, we try to take one channel per year and completely go down and do the shredding. Well, and when we do that, we actually shred whatever inside the bayou itself, too.
Well, let me ask you, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, we started, and, before Mr. Matassa's administration for sure, is that we started looking at your manpower and your availability for manpower. Several of those types of projects, if you could name them, you third-partied them, you contracted them out. I believe it's the heart of this board that we don't have a problem with that as long as it gets done, okay? And I know your limitations that we got a lot of trees overhanging these canals. These canals look good at certain points, and you go a quarter mile down the road. If you could actually get to the canal, and look at it like y'all did on the boat rides, several boat rides, it looks a heck of a lot different in the canal. And I don't know if we expand. We go to the edge of what our maintenance can do, you know what I mean, based on our standard maintenance, full, whatever, you know. And it's just a little bit more on the canal cleaning if we, you know, some more efforts. And if you got a third party, they bring it to us, you know.
We can, but that would have to be part of operations budget.
Yeah.
Which would, it's several $1 million a year if you would go to.
Right.
A full-time cleaning of every channel every year. You're looking at full-time service. So you're looking at multiple millions of dollars per year for an outside source to go through and do that.
I understand.
And if it's your wish, I have no problem.
We believe that if we, you know, I say we, so I'm going to go ahead and speak for myself. I believe that if we develop an in-house crew to a point, then we have more autonomy to pick them up from New River, move them to Panama, and pick them up from Panama and move them to Black Bayou or Manchac, whatever, you know. And, you know, so, you know, that's what we're just looking for a constant service that can serve the people.
We can do it both ways.
And put it where it gives you more autonomy to work and manage it yourself and get it done and get the job done. We know what it takes to go hire a contractor, put it out for bid, all this good stuff, and the things we got to go through. So I'm not trying to undermine, and I know we got laws against a certain amount of that anyway.
Absolutely.
But we definitely, and if you need another shredder, if the demand is there, it's not that we don't have somewhere to go with every penny of the budget every year, but if another shredder and another a barge is what's needed, then
we have some of that already.
Please bring that to us.
And we'll talk about it in one of the other items. We'll talk about capital budget, 5-year budget. We also have the constraint of living within our means, which is 13 million or 14 million comes in, 14 million goes out. Neutral, a budget neutral type situation where we don't constantly take from our fund balance to fund operations. So we do have that constraint. And again, whatever the board decides to do is fine, but when we bring the budget up and we're bringing in 15, 16 million from the tax, and we're spending 17, 18 million, well then, to be honest with you, y'all look at me and say, what in the hell's going on here?
We understand that.
So it all impacts my budget, and some of the reasons we do not have these crews in place is because my budget is limited, and I don't want to pull a lot from my fund balance to pay for normal yearly operation. We try to live within the tax that we collect.
And as a manager, all I need to do is look at your budget and look at the priorities. You hear what you hear here every month, and take that into account and try to move some of that stuff up the line.
We in the budget review process right now.
Yes, we are.
It's coming to y'all, I think, tomorrow for the first review. Again, that's just the review of it.
Yeah.
We do have time now to adjust it, in which we plan on adjusting it, you know. After the first review, it's common to adjust the budget to whatever the wishes of the council is. But it's not, we have plenty of time to add certain other budget items to it, eliminate some, add others. So I'll start working on that this week and see what it'll take to have regular crews to do mostly that type of shredding and cleaning and clearing of major channels. I don't have a problem with that. And then we just discuss the budget with that included. And again, I can maybe look at a prioritization and remove some other things that we're planning on doing and put this in instead.
Yes.
So.
And back to Mr. Sadley's subject, I also would like to see something happen, something in front of us at some short term to see what direction we're going in that.
That is exactly what our plans is. And again, I answered a specific question which had the word final
so
in it.
I'm going to leave it general.
We plan on coming back to the Drainage Board and to the council within 60 to 90 days. And right now it's less than 90 days. And with a preliminary. saying, look, basically this is what you are going to look at. We're looking at reducing a lot of things, restricting a lot of things. It has to happen as part of this program, a general program. We're going to try to have enough information in it so the council can make the choice, say, look, should we go with moratorium on certain areas of the parish? At least that. And because it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You know, when we get down to the final ordinances and regulations and
I'm
stuff,
good with all that.
it's going to happen anyway. We want to try to give the council enough information to say, and just as an example, in these areas, we're going to do a moratorium on this type of construction or that type of construction or whatever.
And
That's what we plan on doing on the short term, so you can make a decision.
yeah, and that's good. That's all good. I'm gonna just be brief on this. Is that I am the one that's gonna have to deliver the message to the people in my area.
Right.
Okay, all right. So I would like to see, because basically I can't stand the damn word moratorium. Okay, all right. That's, if we all decide what's best for the people and we put regulations in place, I will work to put the best regulations in place to save people in the future. Okay? So I just want to get something. I don't want to throw something on people at the last minute. I want to work with people. They got people that are making plans on what they're going to do now. There's a lot within the last year and a half that people are making some big plans on what they're going to do. They was going to give some land to their children were going to build a house. Hell, they don't even know what size house and how high to build it right now, okay, other than what we have in place. I would just like to take, as y'all are progressing on that, I would like to get some updates on where we're going. I know that has been in the past, that the word moratorium has been like a black cloud hanging over somebody's head from them moving another direction on their own. All right? I don't like operating like that. I want to work with every council member up here in every district, and let's put some stuff in place that's going to be best for the people that live in those areas. And some of it's going to be some rules that people are not going to like, because it's going to be different than the last 5 generations have done it. And we know that's coming, and we know it's needed. I just would like to see where we're going with certain things as soon as you can.
And again, that's always been our intention, is to give you something to make initial decisions on with, enough data, enough information. The full-blown, final report with your ordinances, written ordinances, and all of that is really involved. And that's going to take up to a year to get all of that done. But we hopefully can give you enough information to make
what we would like to
initial
see is a
decisions.
rough draft of where we're going and what
Exactly.
direction and what type of ordinances you think needs to be put in place. Not get it to the point where when we get it, we got to go through and change a word or change a syllable or change a paragraph or delete one.
That's our
Okay?
intention.
Not to the point where it's in legal hands.
Right.
We want, our first look should be, is this as good as we can do for the people of Ascension Parish, and especially in the low-lying areas. And on that subject, I'd just like to thank you for the time, but I'd just like to close, and Council Chairman Lambert's aware of this, and some of the people in the PLD and some of the engineering firms, like GSA and some of the other ones, you're aware. I'd love to see this board and this council and this administration and your department, for sure, let's continue to push to our federal government. Let's push to our governor. I, for one, represent a district that within the restore money, unless all the money comes in, I have a group of people that are not going to really be financially helped. They've already pulled out of their pocket, their savings, borrow money, whatever they can do. So let's look to the big picture. Let's see if we can take the back end of some of this big money and complete some big projects. Say the co-meet diversion, Law Ridge Levee's one of them for sure. Not that we need that money for it, but some of these big drainage projects, that's going to help us in those areas of the people you're not going to help financially right now, but it'll help them not flood again. And when you're talking an effort of $200 million or so, it sounds like a heck of a lot of money. But put it against 5 billion or something, you know, it's a little bit less on the percentage mark. But you can help a large amount of people that are not going to receive payback for what they lost during this last flood event in Ascension Parish and possible future flood events. So I would like for everybody, anybody that's interested, give me a holler. Anybody that's, you know, got a question, give me a holler. But I definitely think that we got some ability to try to work with our state and federal government and our major drainage districts, including the East Ascension Drainage and Pontchartrain Levee District, and the Corps of Engineers and everybody else to get some of these major projects funded in Washington, D.C. and get them moving along. And I'm not saying take it out of the Corps' hands, but put it on some type of fast track. And appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Clua. Ms. Terry?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Bill.
Yes, ma'am.
As you're making your budget considerations in the next few days and in the next few weeks, certainly you know, I don't need to remind you, that a priority for me is the fish bayou control. And especially having made the trip up Bayou Manchac the other day, I'm also very concerned about our contribution to the PLD's efforts in the clearing, dredging of Bayou Manchac. So I would hope you'll remember those two things. And if I would like to ask for just a moment of her time, if Kimberly would please bring us up to speed on the fish bayou. I think there was some discussion about that, and also the PLD's.
So the PLD is working on their attorney is working on their memorandum of understanding between the PLD and the parish for the project. Unfortunately, we didn't receive it until this afternoon, and we weren't comfortable submitting it tonight. It is on the PLD's agenda for next week, so they'll hopefully approve it next week, and then it'll be on y'all's agenda next month to approve. But we're still working on the project in the meantime.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Great. Just one quick thing, if you don't mind, Mr. Terry. The alignment, we okay with the alignment of the culverts that we were talking about?
It's through
The
Fish
structures?
Bayou, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Bill,
Yes, ma'am.
getting down into the weeds now. The task orders, I'm getting them by email, which I appreciate very much, what's coming up. How long, is there any data that would give me some predictability on a task that's number 11 in my district? How long can I tell Mr. Levine, for example, whose task is number 11, that it will be before there's any possibility that we will get to him?
Yeah, we have that. We can give it to you. We have, in fact, Ron is in charge of it, in charge of our scheduling, which is part of the Microsoft project system, and we can predict in order of magnitude when we can get to a certain work order in a certain district. So we can send that information to you. We don't normally give it out per se to the owner, to the complainants, because, you know, we could tell somebody, look, you know, we can't, we'll be there on October 5th, 2018. We're constantly revising the schedule. A lot of the schedule, we're still trying to eliminate redundancy in the schedule. For the same ditch, you got 5 work orders on it. We're trying to clean all that up. But as that happens, all of this changes, and the work orders move up. So basically, we tell the people that about a work order, we say, well, you're about 16 down the list or 18 down the list, and don't actually give them a specific date.
Well, I don't like getting a specific date either, frankly.
But we can
because
give
I
the
get nailed
council.
to that cross if that's
We can give the
terrible
council this
analogy, but
information.
I
Crunch
get
out
nailed
our
to that.
schedule now. This is predicted to be on this, around this date. And again, if you request that, we can actually give that to all the council members.
I want something fairly reliable, though,
Yeah.
Bill. I don't want to tell people, I mean, I would just assume, I mean, frankly, I'd rather that be on you than on me. I hate to tell you, but I mean, I don't have any control over when they get there, so I don't want to be responsible for whether they get there on the 5th, when you said they were going to be there on the 3rd.
This is just again, this is just a scheduling mechanism so we can prioritize the work orders and step it out on down so we have some kind of idea. But we're not in control of it either.
I realize
The weather is the biggest factor of our control. Things happen like last week and, we don't do anything hardly.
Look, I think reasonable and, unexpected weather or reasonable weather events all that can be taken into consideration, even by a constituent. People are very reasonable. But they do want to have some idea, when are they going to come? So that they know, and I don't know if there's a way, if our folks should be communicating with them. This has been delayed, I just don't know. We need to sit down and have a conversation about how we
Yes.
better provide a service to people and have them understand or have some communication from the parish to them that this has been delayed for some reason. It's just, we work for them.
Yeah. And again, ma'am, we have weekly delays. We get into a wet season, it's
Sure.
weekly. One rain shower can put us back 3 days.
I understand.
One wet, a major rainstorm can put us back 2 weeks, especially when you're looking at off-road ditches. On-road ditches is not as critical, dependent on that. But off-road is totally dependent on the wetness of the ground that we're having to cross to get to the bayou, and also the elevation in the ditches. If there's water in the ditch, we can't really do much.
I understand.
So all of it's dependent on that, and we may get 2 weeks of good weather and 3 weeks of bad weather, and it changes our schedule completely haywire. That's the
understand.
downside of the type of work that we do and the scheduling process. We're trying to get a handle on it, and Ron is doing a great job now of cleaning everything up, but it takes a little bit more time. We do feel fairly comfortable with the schedule that we have, dependent on bad weather. Of course, when we change one out of the schedule, if the work order that we're going to move on tomorrow is delayed because of weather for 3 days, we try to go to something else that's not delayed by the weather, another location. So things change like that too. So if one location is, say, based on a perfect schedule, is scheduled for 3 months from now, it may be done next week. If that location is dry and the other work orders ahead of it is wet, we mobilize to whatever job we can work on to keep the people busy. So again, that even changes a lot.
Right. I hear you.
It's a very difficult system.
Okay, my other question, we've been talking about a year now about hiring contractors to get us caught up on task. Ditches. So what kind of progress have we made on that?
The main task that we're looking at now for us contracting is, and we discussed it several times, and that is contracting out subdivision roadside drainage, which is the biggest problem we have. Our parish roads, mostly dead-end streets, small streets, and older subdivisions. We have identified the first list. I'm going back through another review of that right now. This week we'll be going out to surveyors, contracted surveyors, to begin the work of surveying and coming up with a plan for those subdivision ditches. As soon as that's done, as part of their process too, is to put together specifications on what it'll take to clean out, remove the covers, what size covers need to go back. We get all those specifications together, then we will go out for a contractor to go in, maybe 1 or 2 subdivisions per contractor, to go in and immediately start working on it to make the needed changes in those subdivisions and those private, small parish roads. That will be coming to you probably in 60 days for the recommendation to go out for a contract on some of them, the initial phases of those subdivisions and roads. I will be bringing you the list of the subdivisions and roads at the next meeting. But I'm going to go ahead and send it out for surveying right now, to get started on them. But I'll bring the list to you at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's all I have, sir.
Mr. Todd,
I'm good.
Mr. John,
Good.
Mr. Ben. Okay, with that, we're going to the general business, approval, substantial completion. Mr. Rue?
Okay. This is for, we hired a contractor to go in and do the repairs to a radiator coil, and this is for substantial completion of that project.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Randy. Second by Mr. Johnny. Question?
The box at the top, or there's nothing checked there, whether it's for the whole project or
It's a
part
whole,
of?
actually, this.
But why is that box not checked? You see the one I'm talking about?
Let me go to it, see.
There, short, I didn't,
That should have been all work. And again, it's a very simple repair work. I mean,
well, I'm not talking about that, I'm just talking about the form. We don't know whether, why is the form not completed?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. Alan filled it out. It should have been checked, all work. It was just one.
I guess the only reason I'm discussing with
Yes.
that, we just had that last week, same thing.
It was the same
People are
thing.
not,
This
people
is-
are not, filling the forms out.
Well, this was sent out before the meeting last week.
Okay,
It was sent out, last Monday.
okay.
And, y'all, the meeting on Thursday, it's an identical project that the council approved at the, Thursday meeting. It just has to be approved by both the council and.
So it should be entire project?
Oh, yeah, it's just one repair work. And in fact, it should have been done on this type of contract with retainage, taken out. It should have been done on a professional service contract. When they finished the contract, we inspected it, it's done according to our approval, and they get paid. But it was done on another contract, a public works contract, which had retainage taken out. So we have to go through the process of getting formal completion, a substantial completion, recorded in the courthouse, and they have to wait 45 days before they get their 10%. So that's the reason we bringing it to the council.
Okay. Just note in the minutes that it's for the entire project, please.
We'll add that. Any objection to the motion? None, motion passed. Number 8, authorization to the following contracts for 2018. Mr. Rue.
Yes, sir, and this is our standard contracts that's up for renewal. And again, it's BF5 for solid waste, BF5 for disposal of creosote bridge timber. Vegetation Management Consultants, that's a firm that does our, works with our vegetation group to determine the amount of chemicals that's put into the mix. Ordura Group, that's the group that we hired to look over all our pump stations and come up with a operation procedure manual for each pump station and review any problems at all the pump stations. And we asked for a renewal of the contract for 2018 for these firms.
Have to do them one at a time, or can we do them all together?
All together.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Benny, second by Mr. Todd. Any opposition to the motion?
I have one question.
Question, Ms. Terry?
Ardura Group is going to be writing operations manuals for the pumping stations or updating that? I mean,
They're going to be doing both. On some of the pump stations, we're going to be revising the operation manuals. On some of them, it'll be brand new. We don't have per se an operation manual for the Henderson Bayou. We're updating the one at Sorrento, procedures for the operation of that, and we're updating the one for Marvinboro Pump Station. One of the main reasons for that is twofold. Number one is this goes into public record, and it's there for future administrations to use. Personnel, we don't have to worry about, passing along what's in somebody's head. It'd be a firm operation manual for it. The other thing is in grants for us when we get into, in fact, we're trying to get this done right now because FEMA is asking for this right now on a couple of pump stations. They want to see our operations manual and everything else. So we're formalizing that into one document. So we can submit it to FEMA when they ask at future events, and also be for future administrations.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. Any opposition?
Question?
Mr. Sadler.
Not necessarily, Mr. Chairman, any opposition. For the four listed firms, are these contracts just to do business with them, or are there dollar amounts attached within the contracts? And if so, what are those dollar amounts?
We can send that to you from legal department tomorrow, the contracts themselves. They
Well,
have a dollar amount associated with each one of them per year.
And those dollar amounts are identical to what they were last
Yes,
year? or-
yes, sir. Yeah. They haven't changed any, we're just renewing the
I
contract.
guess in the future, it'd just be a little more palatable when you vote on a motion like this to actually have those dollar amounts in front of you.
We can have dollar amounts, or we can have the full contract. It's at your,
I wouldn't mind even having both.
that's no problem.
Thank you.
All right. No further discussion. Motion passed. Number 9, approval of multi-year budgeting. Mr. Rue?
Again, this was omitted from the, when we sent out the agenda last week, mistakenly omitted. It was intended to be sent for your review. We can discuss it, and you can refer it to the next meeting, or we can act on it tonight, whatever your wishes are, since you did not have that to review prior to the meeting. This is something that you've seen before. I've handed this out before on our major projects. It's been revised a little bit to reflect some of the major projects that I did not have numbers on before. Basically, part of the $33 million mitigation money, hazard mitigation money. This is what we're asking, administration's asking, to look over the list of projects, look over the funds allocated for it, and determine that, with the vote of the board, that these are the projects, the main projects that we're gonna be involved with over the next, at least 5 years on some of them. Some of them a little bit less. Hopefully it'll be completing the Law Ridge levy. But, this is, again, it's part of the 5-year budgeting process, and also to get verification from the council or the drainage board that these are the projects you wish to proceed with, and also to fund through some of the $33 million that we will be receiving.
Chairman, I make a motion that we give a month to look over this list.
Second.
I second that, yeah.
And in the meantime, also, I'll be available to meet individually
Sure.
or as a group, several at a time, to go over it. Also in this is the 5-year projected operational fund, operations of the Drainage Board for the next 5 years. It reflects each year what we expect to expend out of capital projects, also what we expect to receive from taxes, and also what we expect to expend for our operations, all included with the final estimate of fund balance per year and at the end of 5 years. So again, it's for your review. Again, I'll be glad to sit with several of you at a time or one at a time, whatever your pleasure is.
Thank you. Appreciate that myself.
All right, thank you. It was made mention, Mr. Todd, we're gonna go ahead and just postpone and, till everyone reviews, sets up appointments, and, let's make sure we have all our projects where we need to be. All right, we have number 10. I have 2 speakers on, authorization to remove New River Weir and perform dredging operations. Mr. Rue, if you don't mind, I'm gonna call up, Mr. Jeff Pettit first. And we have one more, then you can give your report, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. In talking about dredging New River, that's great, but I'm sure you're all aware that the situation that happened a couple of weeks ago with the new development on 73. Somehow sediment got into New River. It went all the way through the city of Gonzales and all the way past Holy Rosary on Weber City Road. And I did call Ron Savoy with the parish. He responded to the call timely, within less than an hour, which is great. I appreciate that. And he said that wasn't directly him. It had to do, the fellow in charge of stormwater would have to look at that. He called back also within less than an hour, which is fantastic. I appreciate that. But I never heard any word back about, and I did ask both of them, what are the consequences for anybody dumping water out of a pond or whatever that is sediment filled that left a plume? New River actually looked like dark chocolate milk, and it went all the way from Geismar through the city of Gonzales into Sanamaw and past Holy Rosary Church. What are the consequences? Because we all know what happened. That sediment filtered out and down the whole length from the input point all the way down. And my neighbor and I drove it. We drove New River from where it starts on River Road by the plant, by the old, Vulcan. Came all the way down and drove 73, then drove 429 all the way down through the city of Gonzales, all the way out to Holy Rosary. It took a couple of days for that plume to reach Holy Rosary, but it went that far. Are there any consequences for somebody dumping sediment into New River? Is my question. One more thing I'd just like to add, and this goes back to what Councilman Cluott and Councilman Satterley said. I follow a group called RestoreTheLouisianaDelta.org. It's a nonprofit that is about restoring it's land reclamation and restoring our wetlands and things like that. An article they had today, and this is just a short excerpt. The two best ways to minimize flood damage losses are building outside of floodplains and building structures capable of coping with flooding. Agencies should be held accountable for implementing these proven best practices. According to the Department of Homeland Security, benefits of implementing stronger building codes for natural hazards include savings from lowered insurance rates, increased property values, and reduced losses during floods. Something to think about.
Yep. The next speaker, Mr. Quintmore.
Good evening. Since I'm having to speak before the actual report, I'm going to have to speak in general terms because I'm not sure exactly what is proposed. With that being said, I did want to thank this board. I also wanted to thank the Drainage Department. I also wanted to thank the snagging and clearing crews who cleaned the bridges that I identified last time. I didn't bring pictures, but they look great. They're completely cleared of vegetation, logs, tires, and they look great. What I would consider is to continue that upstream because there's still plenty of bridges to be cleared, but I want to thank them for that. Second thing is I wanted to talk about the weir. I've spoken about the weir before. If the intent is just to remove the weir, I just want to warn you again, the effects of that. You will have a massive fish kill upstream. The sewer will be exposed to the air. You will get plenty calls from your constituents, which is probably about 5 to 6 districts, about the smell and the overall effect of what you're doing. The long-term effects is vegetation will then grow inside the center of the canal. When floodwaters come, the vegetation will break loose, it will pile against the bridges, and will cause people to flood. Now, there says dredging in here. If you're ultimately just 100% geared up to pull the weir, do the dredging first. Dredge the canal, showing that the elevation of the upstream canal is the same elevation as the downstream canal, so when you pull the weir, you won't have the sewage, you won't have the fish kills, and you won't have any effect that you're going to have if you just pull the weir early. And so there's something for this board to consider, something for the Drainage Department to consider. I did want to say, happy to see that the Laurel Ridge Levee Extension is moving forward. I would encourage a good, maybe adequate strip timeline on the Frisch Bayou, Frog Bayou permitting. Went around Ridge Road the other day. I'm completely aware of different elevations in permitting within the Spanish Lake Basin. There's some at 11, there's some at 13. If you don't coordinate that, along with these projects, the next flood, these people that rebuilt at 11 will flood. I'm not sure why the inconsistency is there because it is in an actual bowl similar to New Orleans. And so those elevation inconsistencies should be closely looked at as far as permitting is concerned within the Spanish Lake Basin. Thank you.
Mr. Rue?
Yes, sir. Again, we met, Councilman Kay Malati and I, and the parish president met with the mayor of Gonzales and their engineer, and we came to agreement that this is something that is requested by the city for us to remove the weirs. There's actually two weirs, one by Smith Bayou on the upper end, and the lower end is by Walmart. And to a combination of removing the weirs and a dredging of the channel through that area. How it's going to be done, we need approval from you to proceed with this. Then we'll go into the specifics of engineering cross-sections and decide the best way of proceeding with it. Dredge first, remove the weirs, or vice versa. Now, in the past, and I'm going back about 15 years, it was suggested that we do the same thing, and the city fought us on it. At that time, the Corps was involved with it, and it was the recommendation of everyone and the engineering firm to actually, if you're going to do that, is to remove the weirs, allow it to dry, and then remove the sediment from it after it gets somewhat dried out. That was the most efficient way of proceeding with the project. Now, if that is not, certainly not something I'm saying that we will do, first thing we need to, from you is authorization to proceed with that project. Then we'll get more specifics from the engineering firm that's assigned to that to give us the procedure of how we're going to go about it. Okay. And some cost estimates on it, too.
Mr. Goulart.
Yeah, Bill, who's the firm that had this?
H. Davis Cole.
H. Davis
Yes.
Cole. So what is the scope of that particular contract that we gave them versus what you're looking toward the future?
It had a combination of drainage improvements and either addition, a structural change to the weir or the removal of the weir. So it was, it fits into what, anything we really wanted to do with that system, you know, from the upper end of by Smith Bayou to Walmart. So we redirected them to say, okay, they gave us an initial report on the type of weir that needs to go there, if we were going to go with a removable or a type of weir that is capable of lifting during certain storm events and then closing back to get an elevation there, constant elevation. Or, and so that's the first initial task, was to do that. They came back with some estimates of that. Then it was changed to what would happen, what would it need, what kind of dredging needs to be done if we remove the weirs. And they're working on that right now.
Mr. John.
And that mostly had to do with the quantities that will be removed and how we discard it and the permitting process of that.
Mr. John, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the removal of the weirs and dredging in the best practice.
Moved by Mr. Johnny, second by Mr. Benedict Johnson. Question, Mr. Dawson.
Bill, just to clarify, so we're talking about taking the weir out, not replacing that with anything? So we're just cutting the bottom out, and then there'll be no obstructions in that?
Constant slope to that bayou from where the old, where the existing weir is at Smith Bayou, which is above the old country club, Gonzaga Country Club, to below where the weir is at Walmart. So we have a constant slope all the way through.
Now, am I correct in this? Do I remember this correctly? Was it H. Davis Cole, whoever did the engineering study on this, they recommended that this is the best solution for us to improve our major drainage. Is that correct?
That
or
is
to
correct.
prevent flooding in the future? Would
That
you mind just walking us through how this affects or improves the major drainage during a flooding event?
Well, right now, the weirs were put there for one reason only, to give an artificial elevation in the channel going through Gonzales. Basically to make it look like a river, change it from a ditch to a river. And that's initially why they were put there many years ago. In the meantime, what happens is with that weir, it actually plugs the bayou. It's just like a tree or anything else in the bayou. It does not allow sediment to go through. Only the very top of the elevation of water coming through there under high water events overflow. So it's really filled up with sediment in that bayou, mainly due to the weir stopping it. The other problem is the fact, and we talked about it many times before, if you live above, the headwaters above the weir at the Walmart, is controlled, the elevation is completely controlled by the weir. So we've always had the comment, why don't you pump down the system? Well, we do pump down the system prior to the event. The fact is, though, from that weir up, which includes the Goudin, it's restricted by the weir. So we can pump down, in front of the weir can be absolutely dry, and the back of the weir can be the level of the weir. We can't get any more out of that system unless we remove the weir. It's constant. And it fills up with sediment, so you lose storage and everything else. So it's really, for a drainage aspect or point of view, we need to remove the weir, or the other concept was to have a removable weir which you could open up, like a gate, open up during rain events, flush it out, allow the drainage, we better pump it down, and then put it back and have it retain that artificial elevation. The city said, we don't care about all of that. This was the attitude of Gonzales, the city of Gonzales, 15 years ago. Said, no, we want that elevation in there. We don't want to take it out. That's changed now, and they say, no, let's get drainage. Let's get it out so we can have good drainage and get that muck out. And so that's why we're going with this system of completely removing it. And it's actually cheaper, a good bit cheaper than what we were planning on doing with the removable weir, because we still had to do drainage, dredging behind the weir anyway. But this, we had additional cost for several $1 million, multiple millions of dollars to put this artificial control system in there. And now we just eliminate that portion of the project, several $1 billion, reduced it by that much. So it's a good project.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm basically really confused on how to vote tonight. You know, I just want to go on record to say that before we do vote, Mr. Chairman. Why the confusion for Doc? I see in our packets that Mayor Arsenault, and I'm just going to quote him, says the city understands the proposed project. This isn't a letter written actually to yourself, Mr. Rue. The proposed project will provide a positive impact on drainage for a large population of the city and parish residents, and hopes to see this project through implementation. Early in that letter, he talked about removal of the weir as well as doing the dredging of the existing channel and providing a finished bayou cross-section. And so my question is, not too long ago, we were considering three alternatives of not removing the weir, but engineeringly doing, and I can't recite those. It's way over, as President Obama used to say, my pay grade, but I remember they were expensive, millions of dollars. But now the mayor of the city of Gonzales is for removing the weirs. And the weirs were placed there first to help drainage. We're being told now they don't. We have the testimony in answer to Mr. Dawson's question about an engineering firm that you just mentioned minutes ago telling us, yeah, it should be removed. And then Mr. Quintmore gets up a little while ago, a surveyor, and suggests it would be a disaster. Is there anything further before I cast my vote that anybody can tell me that I'd be voting correctly to remove this thing, or that it should be left there, or anything, Mr. Chairman? Or is there anybody up at this panel not above their pay grade?
Mr. Sadler, before we go there, I trust Mr. Johnny Kay with his decision from his district. I mean, this is his decision. I don't think he crosses the line and jumps in the north end up here on you. So
I'm not suggesting at all. Johnny, this is something you want to do?
Absolutely, Doc. I trust the authorities and the professionals who have told me that it's going to improve drainage, not only through the city.
Have you talked to the city's engineer, Jackie Bowman? And
yes, I have. She met with us, with Bill Rue, myself,
and she's for removing the weirs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
With that being said.
And on top of that, Doc, if you may, it'll help remove sediment as well. instead of backing it up where the weir starts all the way up through the system. It'll help move it on out.
And to be clear, Mr. Chairman, we are responsible, this Drainage Commission, for that weir.
We've been cleaning.
Ten Out Canal.
Okay? I think Randy has a question.
Yeah, just to kind of reflect on Doc, I think anybody that had something to do with putting that weir there is probably hardly there's anybody alive today, or at least in some position of authority. And it was probably good when it did. But very easily, based on the sentiment swing in the city of Gonzales, is they served their public, and the fact that they went through the same flood we all went through last year, and they're looking for anything that's going to help drain water. Matter of fact, they still have some habitual flooding in the city that we don't see in the rural areas sometimes, in a 4-inch rain, 3-inch rain, and things like that. So I think they're looking for anything that's going to help them drain.
Mr. Todd.
And not only the city of Gonzales is going to benefit from this, but the Goodine that goes all the way down across the 621 drains into this canal that's silted up real bad because of this issue. It's going to be wide open then. It's going to help all the way up north of the city of Gonzales.
And I could give you a little recent history on how this came about for removing the weir or replacing that current weir with a removable type weir. Was done by the council member from that district from the last administration. It was pushed by that council member, and that's what started the whole process. And it would just continue, to now. But it was started by that council member.
Yep. But, Mr. Chairman, another public speaker, Mr. Pettit, brought up a question, albeit not directly related to removal of the weir in New River. It was related to New River in terms of the dumping of the plume of sediment from a developer from an 73 development. I would like to ask, can anyone or someone here tonight, be it from legal, because we've kind of ignored that question, administration or whatever, answer Mr. Pettit's question about what are the consequences of developers dumping sediment into New River or even other Ascension Parish maintained waterways? Do we have, Cody or anybody, something on the books that would police this
We do
this action?
go to the Land Development Code. It is ordinance number 175092. It talks about fines and enforcements for something to that effect. Pretty vague. You would need to know the details really, but that's what guides enforcement of violations of that type. I mean, I don't know the details of what was actually let go, when it was let go, who let it go, but I can cite you to that ordinance, and that's what gives us teeth to enforce something to that effect.
Also,
Does that, Mr. Cody, does that have teeth? Before I haven't read that, but I mean, do we need to bring that in front of strategic planning? You said it was vague. What do you mean by that?
When I say it's vague, and I'll give you an example, I'll read it to you and tell you this is why I can't. Any person who violates any element of a parish required permit or parish regulations or any supporting part thereof, e.g. construction plans, drainage impact study, erosion settlement control plan, or federal and state regulations, see section, it references back to 17504, including violations of the SWEP, will be issued a written warning if a violation is not corrected in the time allotted. So it sets forth a procedure. I guess what I'm telling you is vague is, I can't tell you right now if a federal or state regulation or something was violated. You'd have to go into the details to.
But we have no penalty, sir, at the parish level?
Yes, we do have a penalty. You have to give them written notice. Let's see, let me go back to where I ended up. If the violation is not corrected in the time allotted by the written warning, the project will be issued a stop work order by the engineering department or the Department of Public Works. If the above violations are not corrected within the time allotted by the stop work order, 2 days minimum, all permits shall be rescinded by written notice from the parish. A stop work order does not alleviate responsibility for any violations and shall not indemnify the permit holder against additional enforcement actions as allowed by local, state, and federal laws. If the above violations are not corrected within 5 days of the permits being rescinded, the responsible party will be subject to fines. In addition to any fines levied by federal and state regulators, the fine shall be $500 for each violation. Each specific infraction shall constitute a separate violation. Each day the violation continues shall constitute a separate violation. Fines may be enforced from the date of initial warning of violations. All fines and penalties shall be paid to the governing body of Ascension Parish.
Okay, so under, I believe I captured 5092, Did the parish at least issue a letter to this developer that they were doing illegal dumping?
That I can't answer. It hadn't been brought to my
I'm not
attention.
asking that to you.
Yeah.
What's that,
Miss-
sir?
Did the parish of Ascension issue the developer of the
That
dates?
is under the stormwater management control. We do have a stormwater management control system here, regulations that controls any kind of, any type of release of that type into our waterways is within our stormwater regulations. And that was turned over to the person engineer that's in charge of that. And I do not know what happened after.
So
we can definitely get Mr. Pettit an answer. That's no problem.
We need to look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, there's a motion and a second on this. Any opposition to the motion? If none, motion passed. Move on to number 11, approval of substantial completion.
Yes, sir. This is the Bullock property bulkhead. It's completed.
Motion.
Second.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Mr.
I got
Dawson,
to
second by Mr. Kluwat. Any opposition to the motion?
That's how many terms it's been.
I want to thank Bill and Mike Enlow for working with the family to get this completed over the last several years.
I had to turn it over to Mike because of certain reasons. But Mike took care of it and then made it happen.
Great.
Appreciate all the hard work. Thank y'all. Number 12, approval of change order. Bill?
Yes, sir. This is for the demolition of a single-family residence. The procedure is that if asbestos found, it come for a change order to remove the asbestos, and this is what occurring here. We ask for this change order.
Moved by Mr. Randy, second by Mr. Bennett.
I just want to comment, I want to make sure everybody understands that this is not coming out of our pocket.
No, this is FEMA.
But this is the process that
HMGP
needs to
money
be for it.
for demolition of repetitive loss structures.
No opposition, motion passed. We'll move on to number 13, executive session.
Second.
Motion second, Ms. Secretary?
Roll call.
Randy Kluwat,
Yes.
Bill Dawson,
Yes.
Doc Satterley,
Yes.
Aaron Lawler,
Yes.
Terry Casso,
Yes.
Todd Lambert,
Yes.
Johnny Cagney,
Yes.
Benny Johnson,
Yes.
Dempsey Lane.
Yes.
Motion to reconvene, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Todd. Second by Mr. Johnny, reconvene. Ms. Terry?
Yes, I think from this executive session, what we have determined is that we will allow a 30-day period for negotiations between the two property owners. And at the end of that period, we will convene another executive session to determine if an appropriate response has been made. And at that time, if it has not, we will proceed in whatever direction we determine at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Terry. We'll move on to number 14.
Motion adjourned.
Motion adjourned.
Motion adjourned by Mr. Johnny, second by Mr. Todd. Good adjourn.